Have you noticed that your Pokemon's stats change when transferred between Pokémon Legends Arceus and Pokémon Scarlet or Violet? Howdy YouTube, and welcome to the GameSet Tex channel. My name is Tex, and this video guide will explore how the stat systems in these games translate after a transfer through Pokémon HOME. Before I continue, I will need to explain a handful of terms that I will use throughout this video. Terms such as effort values, individual values, and effort levels. If you already know what these terms describe, you may skip to this timestamp. While you may know that certain Pokemon are inherently stronger and weaker in various stat categories such as attack or speed, the core Pokemon games provide methods to vary the explicit values of stats, or the numbers that you can see under a Pokemon's summary page. In mainline Pokemon games like Scarlet, Violet, Sword, Shield, Brilliant Diamond, and Shining Pearl, stat calculations are influenced by a Pokemon's nature, effort values, and individual values. Natures can often cause one stat category to be stronger than average, but consequently cause another stat category to be weaker than average. Effort values, or EVs, describe the amount of training or effort a Pokemon has invested to make stronger stats better or weaker stats less weak. An EV can range from 0 to 252. Individual values, or IVs, are akin to a Pokemon's genetics. An IV can range from 0 to 31. Conversely, Legends Arceus offers a more simplified stat system that fits its more casual gameplay. While natures are also present in the game, EVs and IVs have been morphed into a new mechanic called effort levels. ELs, known in-game as Ganbaru values, determine a bonus that gets added to the game's unique stat calculation formula. ELs can range from 0 to 10, but the maximum EL that a wild Pokemon can naturally have in any stat is 3. Again, this is just a brief overview of stat calculation in Pokemon, but I will provide links to recommended resources in the description below if you want to gain an advanced understanding of what I just covered. With that overview out of the way, let's observe how the transfer between Legends Arceus and Scarlet/Violet affects a Pokemon's stat calculations. I will first transfer the Pokemon originating from Legends Arceus into Pokemon Scarlet. The subjects originating from Legends Arceus are a Monferno that has an effort level of 0 in every stat. I also fed it a Naive Mint, which adjusts Monferno's stats as if it had a naive nature, but without actually changing its assigned nature from Hardy. A Starly with an initial EL of 1 in its defense. This means that the Starly was caught like this, and none of its effort levels have been enhanced. All other stats have an EL of 0. A Staravia with an initial EL of 2 in its attack, an initial EL of 1 in its defense, and an EL of 0 in its remaining stats. A Gyarados with an initial EL of 3 in its attack, an initial EL of 2 in its HP, and an EL of 0 in its remaining stats. An Alpha Stantler with 3 random stats having an initial EL of 3, as is characteristic with all Alpha Pokemon. In this case, it's HP, attack, and defense. The Palkia that I caught during the game's main story which, similar to Alphas, came initially with an EL of 3 and 3 random stats. And finally, the Basculegion that is on my main playthrough team. As you might have noticed, I have invested some resources into this Pokemon that has pushed most of its stats above an EL of 3. After I transferred the subjects into Scarlet, here is what I noticed. The effect of using an ability mint on a Pokemon from Legends Arceus carries over to the mainline games. If a Pokemon transferred from Legends Arceus has an initial effort level of 0 in a stat, that will translate to an individual value ranging from 0 to about 19 and display either the no good, decent, or pretty good label on the judge screen in your boxes. If a Pokemon transferred from Legends Arceus has an initial EL of 1 in a stat, that will translate to an IV ranging from about 20 to 25 and display the pretty good label on the judge screen. If a Pokemon transferred from Legends Arceus has an initial EL of 2 in a stat, that will translate to an IV ranging from 26 to 30 and display either the very good or fantastic label on the judge screen. If a Pokemon transferred from Legends Arceus has an initial EL of 3 in a stat, that will translate to a maximum IV of 31 and display the best label on the judge screen. Effort levels that are raised from their initial value using grit dust, gravel, pebble, and rock items in Legends Arceus seemingly do not affect IVs or EVs. Additionally, ELs greater than 3 seemingly do not translate in any way to the mainline games. Finally, the Basket Legion, which I have been using on my main playthrough team, is the only Legends Arceus subject to arrive with EVs in its stats. This indicates that EVs are coded into Legends Arceus and seemingly offers the option to EV train Pokemon in a similar fashion to the mainline games. However, the EV graph cannot be viewed in Legends Arceus and instead must be viewed in one of the mainline games following a transfer through Pokémon HOME. Before transferring these subjects back to their home in Hisui, I used a bottle cap to hypertrain Palkia's special attack stat, aka maxing out its IV, in order to see if it would increase the initial effort level in Legends Arceus. Sure enough, Palkia's initial special attack EL went up from 0 to 3 when it returned to its home game. That being said, I personally would not recommend using any bottle cap items on Pokemon that will solely be used in Legends Arceus, as grit dust is very easy to obtain in large quantities. However, if you are permanently transferring over a Pokemon to the mainline games, such as a shiny Pokemon, it would then make more sense to use bottle caps. Now, I will transfer the Pokemon originating from Scarlet into Legends Arceus. The subjects featured in this transfer are a Duat with 0 total EVs and a couple stats with 0 IVs. An Adamant Mint has also been used on it. A Magmar with 100 EVs in both its attack and defense stats, and 5 stats that have between 1 and 15 IVs. A Bastiodon with an EV of 200 in attack and 3 stats that have between 16 and 25 IVs. A Quilava with the maximum EV of 252 in special attack and 2 stats that have between 26 and 29 IVs. A Cleaver with max EVs in attack and special defense and 2 stats that have exactly 30 IVs. And finally, a Raichu with 4 stats at the maximum IV of 31 and a hyper-trained defense stat. After I transferred these subjects into Legends Arceus, here's what I noticed. Likewise with the previous transfer, the effect of using an ability mint on a Pokemon from the mainline games carries over to Pokemon Legends Arceus. If a Pokemon transferred from a mainline game has the no good or decent label for its stat, meaning that stat has an IV of 15 or less, it is guaranteed to have an initial effort level of 0. If a similar Pokemon has the pretty good label for its stat, meaning that stat has an IV ranging from 16 to 25, it will have an initial EL of either 0 or 1. If a similar Pokemon has the very good or fantastic label for its stat, meaning that stat has an IV ranging from 26 to 30, it is guaranteed to have an initial EL of 2. If a similar Pokemon has the best or even the hyper-trained label for its stat, meaning that stat has the maximum IV of 31, it is guaranteed to have an initial EL of 3. Any amount of effort values seemingly do not have any effect on effort levels in Legends Arceus. Again, I personally would not recommend using any bottle cap items on Pokemon that are caught in any of the mainline games and are dedicated for use in Legends Arceus, since grit dust is very easy to obtain in large quantities. To summarize the stat calculation translations between Pokemon Legends Arceus and the mainline Pokemon games, here is a reference table that I put together to concisely describe the findings I just went over. This concludes a GameSet text guide on Pokemon Legends Arceus and Pokemon Scarlet/Violet. I hope Professor Laventon is impressed. If you found it helpful, please consider giving it a like and leaving a comment down below. Thank you for watching, and take care everyone.